Hi there, John Carswell from Cadzow Parish Church. Thanks for joining me today for another of our Cadzow conversations. Yesterday, as you'll know, marked an anniversary of the beginning of our lockdown, which lasted, we were told it was going to be about 3 months, and here it is 12 months later, and we've witnessed the death of over 126,000 people in Britain. It's just a number that's almost too staggering to get your head round. And it seems like we've been in a constant loop, that one day is much the same as the next, with never really knowing exactly when this whole thing is going to end. And it reminds me of the movie Groundhog Day with Bill Murray. You remember that one a couple of years ago, where he was stuck in this time warp, and every day was exactly the same as the one before. He heard the same songs, he ran into the same people, had the same kinds of conversations. And the only thing that varied from day to day was his behavior. Repetition can be a real drag, especially when we're carrying the burden of this kind of shared sense of loss and hurt that we're all dealing with. But there's one thing that repeats every day that I'm glad about, and something that I want to share with you here today. There's a great passage in the book of Lamentations, which is a book about the hardship and the suffering of the people of Israel. And right in the middle of it, in chapter 3 and verse 22, there's a line that says, "The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end." It's a great verse, especially right in the middle of that book, which is so full of the heartache of the people who've lost their city or in exile, who are suffering unimaginably. But it's a great verse, and it's based around two Hebrew words. I just want to tell you a little bit about them. The word that's translated steadfast love is the Hebrew word chesed. And it's one of those words that has no direct translation, and it varies in the English translation from God's loyal love, God's steadfast love, God's unfailing love. And what it's trying to convey is that God's love never ends. It's like a stream that's constantly refreshed every single day, and nothing can change that. That you can always experience God's steadfast love first thing in the morning. And the second word that's translated mercies, or God's compassions, is a word called racham. And racham, interestingly enough, means womb. And so God's compassion for you and for me, is the same kind of compassion that a woman has on the unborn baby in her womb. Or like it says in Psalm 103, as a father has compassion, racham, on his children, so the Lord has compassion on those who trust him, those who believe in him, those who honor him. Those two words really capture the heart of God and give us a sense of what's going on in the middle of this heartache, this constant repetition of bad news and the heartache that we're all dealing with. And they're given to us as a word of encouragement that just as God's newness is revealed to us every day, his compassion is like that ever-flowing stream. It never, ever ends. Now, back to Bill Murray. In the movie, nothing changes until Bill finally gets it right, until he changes his behavior and he begins to embrace the good instead of his own selfish desires. So I want to ask you a question. I want to challenge you here. Knowing what you know about God's steadfast love and God's great compassion for you, how are you going to change your behavior today? How are you going to look at the news differently? How are you going to interact with people, with your family members and with strangers that you might meet? God's love is steadfast, unfailing, unchanging. And his compassion is as tender as a mother with her unborn child. Knowing that changes everything. I want to leave you with one of my favorite songs. It's based on that same passage of Scripture. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. Maybe you know the song, and if you do, just please feel free to sing with me. And I'll see you next time.
steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning, new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness, O Lord. Great is thy faithfulness. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come